There was a reason she remained mute during one of the greatest tennis careers. But when the world started asking about her retired husband's romance with a 20-year-old Filipino tennis prodigy, Mery Perelló finally spoke up. This was never just a tennis tale, therefore nobody was ready for what she said either. It was a story of trust, legacy, and a woman who chose to let her husband contribute a small amount of himself to the cause of another, even though she had the best knowledge of him. Keep an eye out because what Mery said changes everything you thought was true about Rafael Nadal's life after retirement. Rafael Nadal possesses an almost legendary quality. Had a record-breaking 209 weeks at the top of the world rankings, 22 Grand Slam championships, 14 French Open titles, and a left-handed forehand that seemed more like a controlled act of violence against the laws of physics than a tennis play. For 20 years, the world watched Rafa fight, bleed, cry, and win on the world's largest stages. But behind every single one of those victories, behind every depressing trophy lift, behind every grimacing limp off the court, and behind every amazing comeback from injuries that might have ruined less successful careers, there was a woman that most people never really looked to. Her name is Maria Francisco. The world only knows her as Mary or by her childhood nickname, Shiska. When they were teenagers, the doll's sister introduced her to her husband, who was born on the Spanish island of Majorca. And a few years after that first meeting, a spark began to flare between them. At the age of 17, she fell in love for the first time with a boy who would go on to become the most decorated clay court player in history. Music. Most people couldn't have survived that kind of life. She didn't just get by. She built something of her own inside, and in 2012, Mery started working with the Rafael Nadal Foundation, eventually rising to the position of CEO. She has overseen and influenced her husband's company's charity section for over a decade. After graduating from the University of the Balearic Islands with a business degree, she finished her postgraduate studies at ESAD in Barcelona. Rafa does not wear her as a decoration. She is powerful in her own right. But she has always chosen seclusion. In a 2011 interview with The Telegraph, she provided a clear explanation of her views, saying that she believed that following Rafa everywhere would endanger their relationship and that she would feel inferior if she had to continually comply with his demands. That way of thinking didn't change. While everyone was riveted on her husband's every grunt and frown in court, Mery kept her mouth shut for 20 years. When she broke that silence, everyone stopped and listened. When the woman who had built her entire public reputation around staying out of the story suddenly spoke out about her husband's friendship with Alex. But to understand why her comments were so profound, you must first understand the girl who prompted them. Additionally, if you're already immersed in the story, hit the like button immediately since what comes next is the unexpected part. Think about yourself as 13 years old. Your family in Quezon City, Philippines, is passionate about sports. Your mother is a former SEA Games, music, swimming medalist. Your brother plays tennis in college in the United States. You, on the other hand, are holding a tennis racket and have such a great dream that speaking it out loud would be reckless. Now imagine that idea taking you from a local club or a provincial academy to a sunny Mediterranean island and a campus in Manacarea built entirely around the ideology of one man, the greatest clay court player in history. That is the story of Alexandra Eala, one of the most amazing stories in modern tennis. Eala participated in the Rafael Nadal Academy in Majorca as a top junior in 2018, where she started a year-long journey centered on Nadal's philosophy of relentless training, mental toughness, and competitive desire. She wasn't just a guest. She was deeply embedded in the local way of life, training every day under the same principles, guidelines, and expectations that had produced one of the greatest athletes in history. Eala graduated from the Rafael Nadal Academy in 2023, and world champion EGS Fiat gave the keynote address. Think for a moment that this was not your usual graduation. This was a declaration that the young woman leaving those courts had been influenced by something very special, and in 2025, the world realized how special it was. At the 2025 Miami Open, Eala became the first Filipino player to advance to the semifinals of a WTA 1000 event and earned the highest rating for a Filipino player in WTA Tour history. She not only advanced to the semifinals, but she also defeated players in the top 10 worldwide, including Madison Keys and EKA Statek. She played with the audacity of someone who has been trained to feel comfortable in any setting, and for retirement at the age of 19 as they watched things unfold, Raf and Nadal sent her a message. Eala discussed the event with evident emotion, saying that because of how busy her week had been following Miami, She had only just received Rafa's notification a few days after he had messaged her for the first time. She received her first personal message from the man himself after 6 years of training in the same method and learning about his legacy because she had achieved something significant. This relationship extends beyond mentoring. Music. That's more family Eala's long, quiet mornings in Morca with Mery and their sons. 365 days over the world as fans thought about Rafael Nadal's career and saw the 22-time Grand Slam champion rally with a player who grew up training in his academy system. Videos from the academy showed the two of them engaged in protracted baseline altercations. Nadal posted on social media that it was great to be back on a tennis court after a year. He also spoke directly to her, saying that he would be stronger the next time and that it was great to practice with her. Yellow quickly responded on Instagram with 2 remarks. Music. That night, the internet was awake. Millions of people watched the session's videos on all platforms, first saying, "Thank you for today, Rafa," and then adding a second message, "Back like you never left." Music. Filipino fans were in tears. Spanish fans were taken aback. Tennis enthusiasts all over the world shared the footage of these two left-handed players, one a rising star and the other a retired legend, exchanging ground strokes on an indoor court in Morca as though time had frozen. Speaking passionately about the session, Eala said that training with Rafa is something that both adults and young children can only fathom and that it was incredibly unforgettable for her. She said it was a pleasure to share the court with him and that this was the first time she had ever hit with him in her life, calling it a memory that would last a lifetime. Mery Perelló, who had spent 20 years watching the world try to steal parts of her husband, was either inside that building or observing from home. She had aggressively and deliberately protected their privacy by using every resource at her disposal. Additionally, she had created a whole lifestyle focused on maintaining their private world. She witnessed her husband's return to a tennis court for the first time in a year. She felt something she had not expected as she watched him perform it for a 20-year-old Filipino girl. The question that the internet couldn't stop asking was one that no one, not even Mery, could avoid forever. Keep watching. Social media is a complex idea. It's a community. IT is information. It serves as a bridge connecting languages, cultures, and oceans. And sometimes it might be something much less generous. The majority of the responses to the video, which showed Nadal exercising with Alexandra Eala on his anniversary, were exactly what you would anticipate. Filipino fans expressed joy, admiration, and pride as they watched Eala grow from a little child to a world top 50 wonder inside the academy their idol founded. Everyone thought it was a beautiful moment. But beauty is not the end of the internet. Comments started to appear on millions of posts and reposts. Music. While the majority of people were content, some began to pose various questions. Rafa's choice to spend his retirement anniversary with Eala in particular is questioned by a loud and persistent fraction. Questions about the intimacy of their relationship. Concerns were raised regarding the relevance of a man who, like everything else, had publicly mentioned his family going back to a tennis court for a young woman his wife had never disclosed. Joan Bosch, Eala's coach, had previously described how Nadal personally stepped in to assist Eala at the academy, not out of obligation, but because he recognized the challenges she was facing. When Nadal pulled up a racket and began hitting serves to demonstrate what he was saying, Eala was taken aback. Bosch had called it the luck of the Rafa Nadal Academy. However, the internet began to interpret these facts differently when it first viewed them. The fan forums sprung to life. In comment sections across multiple languages, the same embarrassing question was asked. YouTube channels produced speculative videos. The quantity of hashtags rose. This is the issue with public personalities who guard their private. When something penetrates that boundary, even if it is totally benign, a vacuum is produced. After that, people fill vacuums with anything they choose to pour into them. Music. Mery Perry's public reputation was built on her silence, her inability to explain herself, and her unwillingness to share the limelight with her husband. She had kept that position perfectly for more than 20 years. But this time, something was different. Music. When discussing Nadal's character, Eala told the Philippine broadcast network GMA that he is incredibly grounded, has achieved more than she could have ever dreamed of, and that it is truly wonderful that he is still so friendly to everyone around him. Their warm and genuine comments further increased the public's curiosity in their relationship. Then Mery decided what to do. This was what everyone expected when they heard that Mery Perelló had brought up Alexa. Some expected jealousy, the defensive comments of a wife defending her territory. The CEO of the Rafael Nadal Foundation was expected by some to make a calm, composed, and strictly legal corporate statement. Some expected nothing at all, simply another deliberate silence from the most reclusive lady in tennis. They did not receive any of those items. Mery offered something far more unusual, something that could only come from a woman who had seen her husband give portions of his body, time, and unshakable mental energy to a sport that he loved so much that it occasionally seemed to love him back. She had seen him bleed through his foot in a Grand Slam final. She had witnessed him cry during press appearances. She had watched him retire at the Davis Cup with their little child in the crowd, tears running down a face that had suffered so much. She had saw him return to a tennis court a year after it was all over, with an instantly identifiable sparkle in his eyes. In reference to Alexandra Eala, Mery purportedly stated that she could understand why Rafa had grown close to the young Filipino athlete because assisting you was not a distraction from Rafa's retirement. It was an extension of his identity. The Rafael Nadal Academy was never just a marketing gimmick or a business endeavor. It was Rafa's answer to the question of what happens to brilliance after the tournament. It was his way of verifying the values he had maintained. The discipline, humility, and refusal to accept limitations had nowhere to go when his body could no longer sustain them while on tour. Eala was a living testament to its effectiveness. In his retirement farewell video, Nadal spoke directly to his family, thanking his wife in particular and characterizing her as his perfect travel companion throughout his career. He also said that coming home to watch their kid grow has been his source of strength. In this instance, Mery did not see Alexandra Eala as a rival for her husband's attention or a complication, but rather as a continuation of a man she fell in love with when they were both young. A man who chose to remain still when he saw a young athlete in trouble. It was to show her how to operate a racket. Eala's coach, Bosch, claims that rather than acting out of a complicated element,